The world in ashes. The year is 1945. World War II has ended, but the world isn't celebrating peace. Cities lie in ruins, millions are dead, and the victors now eye each other with suspicion. In the shadows of Berlin, as Soviet and American soldiers toast over fires, the seeds of a darker conflict are sown, not with bullets, but with ideologies. The United States emerges from the war as a beacon of capitalism and democracy. Its economy booms, its military unmatched. Across the world, it's hailed as a savior. But to the east, another titan rises. The Soviet Union, though battered and bloodied, stands triumphant. Communism, its core belief, now marches westward with the Red Army. In the rubble of Europe, these two superpowers begin a silent standoff. There's no official declaration of war, no grand speeches calling for conquest, just a cold, calculating tension. A war without gunfire, yet more dangerous than any before. The world holds its breath. On one side, the USA preaches freedom, choice, and open markets. On the other, the USSR champions equality, state control, and revolution. Each believes the other is a threat to civilization. Each begins to prepare. Old alliances crumble as new ones form. Nations are forced to choose, east or west. The globe becomes a chessboard, and every move matters. Mistakes could cost millions of lives. Victory means global dominance. But behind the scenes, fear drives everything. The fear of invasion, the fear of betrayal, the fear of annihilation. In Washington and Moscow, powerful men sit in secret rooms, planning, watching, and waiting. Soon, the war that isn't a war begins to take shape. It starts with whispers and propaganda, with spies and secrets, with iron curtains and atomic bombs. And as the Iron Curtain falls across Europe, a chilling phrase enters the global lexicon: the Cold War. Yet, even now, the world doesn't know how close it stands to the edge. The storm is coming, and no one is truly prepared. Drawing the line, the Iron Curtain falls in the aftermath of WWII. Europe becomes a continent divided. Germany, the heart of the conflict, is split between the Allies. But it's not just Germany that fractures. Ideologies tear through countries like invisible wires. East becomes communist. West turns capitalist. Winston Churchill, once the stalwart of British leadership, speaks in Missouri. His words echo across the globe. From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. This isn't metaphor. It's a warning. A line has been drawn. Behind this curtain, in places like Poland, East Germany, and Czechoslovakia, communist regimes rise. Supported by Stalin, they silence opposition. Elections are manipulated. Freedom is suppressed. The USSR isn't just protecting its borders. It's building a buffer zone, a wall of ideology. In response, the USA launches the Marshall Plan. Billions of dollars pour into Western Europe to rebuild and resist Soviet influence. It's not just charity, it's strategy. Prosperous nations are less likely to fall to communism. Money becomes a weapon. Stalin sees the Marshall Plan as an attack. He tightens his grip. Information is controlled. Borders are closed. the Soviet Union becomes a fortress. Its citizens are prisoners of a state that fears Western contamination. Tensions escalate in Berlin. The city, divided among the victors, becomes a microcosm of the Cold War. In 1948, the Soviets blockade West Berlin, trying to force out the West. In response, the US and its allies launched the Berlin Airlift. For nearly a year, planes fly day and night, delivering food, coal, and hope. The airlift is a triumph for the West. Stalin blinks first, but the message is clear. Berlin is a flashpoint. A single spark here could ignite the world. And so, the Iron Curtain holds. Two worlds now exist side by side, both armed, both paranoid, both unwilling to back down. The Cold War has solidified, and it's only just beginning. The spy game, the Cold War, is a war of secrets. In the alleyways of Berlin, in the cafes of Vienna, in the corridors of Washington and Moscow, whispers carry more weight than bullets. The CIA and KGB become the true soldiers of this silent war. Espionage isn't just a tactic, it's an obsession. Every nation is a suspect. Every friend, a potential traitor. Double agents play both sides, weaving webs of deceit that reach the highest levels of power. Trust is a luxury no one can afford. The Soviets steal American atomic secrets through spies like Klaus Fuchs. The US, in turn, infiltrates Soviet communications with elaborate operations like Venona. Each success fuels the paranoia. Each betrayal scars deeper. In the 1950s, Senator Joseph McCarthy leads a crusade against supposed communist infiltrators in the US government. Lives are destroyed, careers ruined. The Red Scare grips America. Fear becomes a tool. Meanwhile, in the shadows, spies meet in dark alleys, pass coded messages, and vanish without a trace. Some are caught and exchanged in tense bridge swaps. Others disappear forever, swallowed by the machinery of secrecy. Technology becomes the new battlefield. Satellites watch from above. Bugs are planted in embassies. Codebreakers race to crack encrypted messages. The battle is relentless, invisible, and unforgiving. In popular culture, spies become legends. James Bond thrills audiences, but the reality is far grimmer. For every daring escape, there's a cold execution. For every victory, a hidden cost. As the years pass, the spy game evolves, but its goal remains the same: to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast the enemy. In this war, knowledge isn't just power, it's survival. Nuclear nightmares at the heart of the Cold War lies a terrifying truth. Either side could destroy the world in minutes. The atomic bomb ends WWII. But it begins something even darker. The nuclear arms race. The US drops 2 bombs on Japan in 1945. The message is clear. This is the ultimate power. But by 1949, the USSR has its own bomb. The balance of power shifts. Now, both sides can annihilate each other. What follows is madness. Hydrogen bombs are built 1,000 times more powerful than Hiroshima. Missiles are developed to deliver them anywhere in the world. Submarines patrol the oceans with doomsday payloads. The world becomes a ticking time bomb. Strategies like mutually assured destruction dominate policy. The idea is simple. If you strike, we strike back, and everyone dies. It's a balance based on fear. Peace through the threat of total war. In schools, children hide under desks and drills that offer no real protection. Cities build fallout shelters. Movies depict nuclear apocalypse. Anxiety spreads like radiation. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 brings the world to the brink. Soviet missiles appear in Cuba, just 90 miles from the U.S. President Kennedy demands their removal. For 13 days, the world holds its breath. One wrong move, and it's over. But a deal is struck. The Soviets back down. The U.S. secretly removes missiles from Turkey. The crisis ends, but the message is burned into history. The Cold War is no game. One misstep could mean the end of humanity. And still, the stockpiling continues. Bombs become more efficient. Delivery systems more precise. The Cold War enters its deadliest phase. Battles in the shadows, proxy wars begin. Though the superpowers never fight directly, their war erupts across the world. In Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and beyond, local conflicts become global tests of ideology. These are the proxy wars. Korea is the first flashpoint. In 1950, North Korea invades the South. The U.S., under the UN flag, intervenes. China backs the North. The war drags on, brutal and bloody. In the end, the border barely moves. But the message is clear. The Cold War has gone hot. Vietnam follows. The U.S., fearing the domino effect, pours resources into stopping communism. Decades of war ensue. Napalm burns jungles. Helicopters roar through smoke-filled skies. But in 1975, Saigon falls. The U.S. withdraws. It's a devastating loss. In Afghanistan, the USSR tries to crush Islamic rebels in 1979. The U.S. arms the Mujahideen, including a young Osama bin Laden. The Soviets bleed in the mountains, facing a war they can't win. It's their Vietnam. Africa and Latin America become battlegrounds too. In Angola, El Salvador, Nicaragua, the pattern repeats. Rebels versus regimes, both backed by opposing superpowers. Civilians suffer. Governments fall. Ideology trumps humanity. These wars are cruel, confusing, and costly. But to the USA and USSR, they're necessary. Better to fight through others than risk nuclear war. The pawns pay the price while the kings remain untouched. But every proxy war leaves scars. Resentment grows. Extremism festers. And with each battle, the world slips further into chaos. And behind it all, the Cold War grinds on, relentless and unfeeling. The space race in the vastness of the cosmos, a new battlefield emerges. The Cold War leaves Earth and ascends to the stars. Space is not just the final frontier. It's the next front line. It begins with a beep. In 1957, the Soviet Union launches Sputnik, the first man-made satellite. A silver sphere, no bigger than a beach ball, circles the globe and sends shockwaves through the United States. Americans look up in fear. If the Soviets can launch a satellite, can they launch a missile? The sky is no longer safe. The race is on. NASA is born in 1958. Billions of dollars fuel rocket science. Schools push math and science. Engineers work day and night. The moon becomes the goal. The Soviets strike first again. The first man in space, Yuri Gagarin, in 1961. He returns a hero. The USSR claims victory. But America isn't finished. President Kennedy promises the impossible: to land a man on the moon before the decade ends. In 1969, Neil Armstrong steps onto lunar soil. The world watches in awe. The USA has won the space race for now, but space remains contested. Satellites become tools of surveillance. Missiles are tested in orbit. The heavens are militarized. Even in the silence of space, the Cold War whispers. Victory isn't just measured in orbits or landings, it's about proving which system can reach higher, faster, farther. And both sides know, whoever controls the sky may one day control the earth. Title: Cold War Explained at USA vs. USSR 1947 to 1991 Détente and Deception. By the 1970s, the world is exhausted. The threat of nuclear war lingers, but there's a growing need for stability. Enter Détente, a thawing of Cold War tensions. Treaties are signed. Leaders meet. Smiles mask suspicion. In 1972, President Nixon visits China and later Moscow. It's a geopolitical earthquake. The U.S. recognizes the strategic value of talking to rivals. SALT I, the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, marks a turning point. It slows the arms race on paper. But while leaders shake hands, both sides keep building. Submarines still glide through oceans. Bombers remain on alert. Détente is a facade, a mask for maneuvering. In the USSR, Brezhnev smiles for cameras, but tightens his grip at home. Dissidents are jailed. Information is controlled. In America, the Watergate scandal erodes trust in government. Détente might ease international tensions, but internal unrest simmers. Meanwhile, technology races ahead. Computers begin to reshape strategy. Intelligence agencies get more precise. The deception grows smarter. In 1979, the fragile peace fractures. The Soviets invade Afghanistan, shattering any illusion of détente. The U.S. boycotts the 1980 Moscow Olympics. Cold War hostility reignites with a vengeance. Once more, fear replaces diplomacy. The arms race accelerates. Leaders speak of limited nuclear war as a possibility. Détente is dead, buried under a new wave of confrontation. And the world, briefly hopeful, returns to the edge. Cultural combat hearts and minds, not all battles are fought with bullets. The Cold War invades pop culture, education, even the food on your plate. It's a war of ideas, a battle for hearts and minds. In America, Hollywood becomes a weapon. Films like Red Dawn, Rocky IV, and The Day After stir patriotic pride and fear of communism. Meanwhile, Soviet cinema glorifies the motherland and demonizes the West. Radio-free Europe beams rock music and uncensored news into Eastern Bloc countries. Teens in Poland and East Germany secretly tune in, their headphones becoming acts of rebellion. Cassettes cross borders like contraband. Art becomes political. Literature is censored or banned. Writers like Solzhenitsyn are exiled. Every book, every song, every image is filtered through ideological lenses. Even sports become symbolic battlegrounds. The 1980 Miracle on Ice, when American hockey amateurs beat the Soviet pros, isn't just a game. It's a moment of triumph, a cultural victory. Education systems are redesigned. Soviet students study Marx and Lenin. Americans learn about the evils of communism. Propaganda is subtle, but ever-present. Consumerism becomes a battlefield too. Blue jeans, Coca-Cola, and Levi's are smuggled into the East. To many behind the Iron Curtain, freedom looks like a McDonald's menu. Culture shapes perception, and perception can win wars. In living rooms and classrooms, the Cold War is fought one mind at a time. Cracks in the wall by the 1980s, the cracks begin to show. The Soviet economy is stagnant. The arms race bleeds resources. Eastern Bloc nations simmer with unrest. The empire looks strong, but its foundation is rotting. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev becomes General Secretary. He brings new words: glasnost openness and perestroika restructuring. He seeks reform, not revolution. But change, once started, can't be contained. Gorbachev reduces censorship. He allows limited private enterprise. He meets with Reagan. They sign the INF Treaty, removing an entire class of nuclear weapons. It seems hope is returning. But at home, the Soviet Union spirals. Nationalism rises. Republics want independence. The economy crumbles under decades of central planning. Empty shelves and long lines become the norm. In Poland, the Solidarity movement gains traction. In Hungary, fences are cut. East Germans begin to flee through open borders. The Iron Curtain starts to fray. Protests erupt across Eastern Europe. Crowds demand change, not promises. In Czechoslovakia, in Romania, in East Germany, the people rise. On November 9, 1989, the unthinkable happens. The Berlin Wall, the Cold War symbol, falls. East meets West in a flood of joy and disbelief. The end is near, but the collapse will be both triumphant and tragic. The fall of the Soviet Union, the 1990s begin with a world transformed. The Cold War is ending, not with warheads, but with revolutions. The USSR, once mighty, now trembles. In 1991, republics declare independence one by one. The Baltic states lead. Ukraine follows. Gorbachev resists, but cannot stop the tide. A coup attempt by hardliners fails. The old guard is broken. On December 25, 1991, Gorbachev resigns. The red flag over the Kremlin is lowered. The Soviet Union ceases to exist. A new era dawns. America emerges as the sole superpower. The Cold War is over, but its legacy is immense. The nuclear arsenals remain. The proxy scars still bleed. The ideologies still echo. For the world, it's a moment of relief, confusion, and uncertainty. Globalization accelerates. Technology booms. But so does instability. The Cold War reshaped borders, rewrote alliances, and redefined power. It created heroes and villains, victims and victors, myths and truths. But its most haunting lesson remains. When giants clash, the world holds its breath. The Cold War never exploded, but it burned silently, steadily through every corner of the 20th century. And though it ended, the embers still glow.